Hello everybody, Argent here with a review of Richard Jewell. So I just got out of seeing it, and I have to say it's a really good movie. I highly recommend you go see it, and it's made by Clint Eastwood, so you don't have to feel bad about spending money on it. You can really see Clint's political leanings in this one. There's this idea that Clint is like some kind of far-right extremist guy, when at his core he's just kind of like a libertarian, maybe like a conservative libertarian. Just kind of like, I like my guns. I don't want to pay all my income in taxes. I like the Constitution, that kind of thing. Like just kind of how most people were in America prior to like the 1960s or whatever. So you can really see that in this movie. And I gotta say, I have so much respect for Clint Eastwood as just a filmmaker. The guy's like 90 now, and he's still pumping out films. And you can say what you want about The Mule, but the fact that like at his age he's able to, I think he wrote, directed, produced, and starred in a movie, and it turned out to be a pretty decent movie, is like saying something. A lot of people are like vegetables by that time in their lives, and I think that's part of the reason why Clint's in such good shape, is because he's keeping busy. He's not stopping. He's continuing to do what he loves for as long as he can. And I have a lot of respect for him as a filmmaker and as an actor, for kind of continually just putting out that quality content. So that being said, let's talk about Richard Jewell. So Richard Jewell is the story of the real life Richard Jewell, who was a security guard at the Atlanta, Georgia Olympics. So he's kind of an interesting figure. I'm kind of on the fence about how smart he actually is, because he kind of comes across as being kind of like really low IQ, but he has a very good memory and a really good like procedural ability. It's always kind of interesting. I think something people really don't get is that there are a lot of different types of intelligence, and I'm not just going with the emotional intelligence meme, but like some people are really smart in certain areas and not very smart in other areas. Like in his case, his kind of interpersonal and social skills aren't very good, but he does have a very good memory. And that's just something I always find interesting whenever I see it in a film, because of course I have a nonverbal learning disability. So in like high school, people thought I was just really lazy or careless or something because I'm really bad at certain things, even though I scored very high on IQ tests and others. So that's just kind of an interesting thing you see with Richard Jewell throughout the movie. So he had kind of a really checkered past. Ever since he was really young, he wanted to be a cop. He wanted to be security guard, law enforcement of some description. And basically he was just very zealous, very like by the book, very blunt, or I'm not sure blunt, just very literal in how he enforced the law. And because he was kind of so uncompromising, he just got into a lot of shit with people. He got fired from a bunch of different jobs. And we kind of see a flashback to some of it. And like you see him trying to deal with like some frat boys, like sneaking in alcohol and that kind of thing, and stuff like that. So there's that aspect to it. There's also, I think, a really interesting, I don't know if class is the right word, but just kind of the way, and we'll get into the actual plot of the movie. I'm just giving some of my initial thoughts. The extreme disdain that people, I don't know if you want to call them Northerners or just upper class people in the U.S. view Southerners. It's the amount of contempt they have for them. Like if you're in Canada, the amount of contempt that the average person has for someone from Texas or like Alabama or Georgia is just really disgusting. Like to the point where like my grandparents who are Mennonites have talked about like how they think like everyone in Texas should be like exterminated or whatever, just because like just the amount of hatred for no reason. Like, most of these people had never met anybody from the South, but they just despise them, particularly poor people from the South, particularly poor whites from the South. And Richard Jewell really fits that profile. And you can really see that in the way the media treats him and the way the FBI treats him. That, oh, he's just a redneck, he's dumb, he's simple, that kind of thing. We can just, he's not important. And I admit I used to be like that. I think most people who are upper middle class and kind of, or whatever, and are raised in kind of a liberal urban environment or suburban environment have that view of, like, maybe people who aren't as well educated, or people who aren't as wealthy, or maybe aren't as smart as you or sophisticated, and you do see them as a social inferior. And when I kind of started to get into this political sphere that I'm in now, I really started to change my opinion on that, and it came down to the fact that there's lots of different virtues and there's lots of different vices. Some people are smart, and that's a good thing. Some people are smart, and then being smart makes them a worse person. This is like getting into I like to kind of use eugenics as a kind of a general thought on this. There's more things to select for other than just intelligence. There's also, like, loyalty, there's trustworthiness, there's honesty, being generally a good person, that sort of thing. Like, ultimately, like, would you rather have the, like, salt of the earth, wouldn't pick a dime off the street people reproducing, but maybe their IQ is like 95? Or do you want the people reproducing and raising children who are like IQ 130, but they're like university professors who, you know, the kind of shit they push. So just that kind of is the kind of some of the background and just first thoughts I had on it. So he's kind of this failed guy. He's a bit of a loser. He's 33 and he lives with his mom, that kind of thing. He keeps getting kicked out of various jobs, but he gets a job as a security guard at the Olympics, the Atlanta Olympics in Georgia. So working that night, he is just kind of going around doing his rounds, and he finds a unattended backpack. And he's like, no, we have to call this in. We got to get the bomb squad to come check this out. This could be a terrorist. And it turns out it's kind of like that scene in Jingle All the Way, that it is actually a terrorist. It is actually a bomb. There is actually a terrorist who planted it. And they're kind of like he's trying to like get the people away from it. He gets the some of the people to get evacuated, that kind of thing. And when he's doing that, a bomb goes off. So kind of overnight, he becomes a hero because he managed to get a bunch of people away from the bomb. He was able to like save a whole bunch of people's lives, etc. So he's like being praised on the news. He gets like a book deal. All this other stuff happens. So when all this other stuff was happening, the FBI have to try to find somebody to finger with it. So they go, okay, we're going to go after Richard Jewell because he's like a dumb redneck. He's like an easy patsy in this case. We can just kind of throw him under the bus. We can get him to take the rap for this, that kind of thing. And one of the FBI agents involved has sex with a journalist. And this movie really shows what scum journalists are. Which is another kind of fun aspect of it. But, yeah, so we have the FBI tells the journalist that he's like their prime suspect and that he fits a profile. And kind of as it goes, and so she publishes it, and immediately the media, being the jackals they are, jumps on it and starts to try to like frame him for the whole thing. Like everyone just immediately assumes he's guilty, that kind of thing. And the FBI kind of starts to move on him, and they take advantage of the fact that he's a very law-abiding, trusting person. And they like lie to him, and it really shows what scumbags the FBI can be as well. Like, one of the things they do is they go to him and they're like, we want you to appear in a training video. We want you to be in one of our training videos about what to do if you find a bomb. So they take him there and they're like, oh, as part of this thing, we want you to sign this form waiving your Miranda rights. It's a fake form though. It's not a real form. It's part of the training video. So they're like completely lying to him that he's being interrogated. They're trying to get him to sign a form that takes away all his rights while lying to him about it. And the idea was going to be they were going to have him like pretend to be the suspect in the video. So they were going to get him to basically sign a form waiving away his rights and then trick him into saying, and they do this later again in the movie, that he did it by lying to him. And they were like deliberately editing the video to make it look like a real interrogation and that kind of thing. So that happened in it, and that was kind of an interesting aspect of the movie. Once again, it's this playing off of him not being like maybe clever enough, or him being like simple, and you can tell there's just a lot of contempt that the FBI agents have for him because he's some like southern redneck. And like a lot of things that are just kind of normal in the South, like owning a bunch of guns or like hunting and that kind of thing, are just viewed as being very like suspicious and bad and that kind of thing. Once again, just because of there's a very strong kind of class cultural element to this film. So he hooks up with Kristen Bale. I forget his full name, Watson something. And he is kind of this... He was a lawyer he met at the Small Business Administration, and he was the only guy who was ever nice to him. So he calls him up, and he gets him to be his lawyer. And he's kind of like, I don't know, like if he's like a libertarian or whatever, like what his political bent is. He has like something on the board that says, I fear the government more than I fear terrorists. But he kind of like, he doesn't really like to wear a suit. He's kind of like the quirky lawyer, that kind of thing. So he agrees to be his lawyer, and that's kind of neat. So he has to try to coach this dude, and this dude is just like a walking time bomb because he just basically agrees to anything the police want. He's just trying to be helpful. And once again, this pushes home the police are not on your side. The FBI or the RCMP are not on your side. They're there to try and screw you, regardless of whether or not you did it. We all would like to think that if we didn't do it, we don't need a lawyer. But there's a lot of pressure on them to find people. And a lot of the time, they don't really care whether or not it's actually the person who did the crime. And they even kind of admit that at one point in the movie to a reporter. They're like, yeah, probably... We don't actually have any evidence, but we want him to be the bad guy, so we're going to try to frame him. And so we just kind of go through this, and kind of the question I kept asking, and I didn't really know anything about this story in real life. So a lot of this, I didn't really know how it was going to end because I didn't know anything about it. There's a scene like right near the end where he goes to the FBI and he's like, do you guys actually have any real evidence? Aside from me being like a redneck or whatever, like, do you have like residue like from the bomb on me? Do you have like, did you find bomb making materials? Did you find like any actual evidence beyond the fact that I'm like a weird dude? And they're like, no, we actually don't. So he kind of gets off, and that's where the film ends. So I gotta say, a really good film. I think there's a lot you can really analyze, like I said, from kind of a class and cultural standpoint. And just a very good warning about how the FBI and the police aren't your friends. And actually, it's funny because I'm right here. Just went for a walk after the movie to record this. That's Osgood over there, which is a law school, ironically enough. Maybe I subconsciously drifted over here. But yeah, so I gotta say, really good movie. Clint still got it. Keep making movies as long as you can, Clint. I have so much respect for you, like I said, as a filmmaker and an actor. Anyways, guys, that's the review. Hope you enjoyed it. People seem to like when I do these, like me just kind of rambling on the street. And yes, this is not dubbed over. I'm actually talking as I do them. I mean, you can kind of hear the background noise. So, yeah, hope you enjoyed that. God bless, and I'll talk to everybody again real soon.